It's season two. Fantastic.
Season two. Season two.
For me and you.
Oh, I like it. I like it. Hi, everyone.
Welcome to the Smart in Public podcast, everybody. It is season two. It seems like forever since we've done one of these, but it's really just been like 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, but look, I'm not going to lie, it was a good break.
It was so nice.
I feel like it was needed, but I'm ready to get back into it. I'm excited for season two. I'm
Yeah,
pumped.
Scott and I were having a laugh because I was like, yeah, we just did like our season one. And he was like, how many episodes were in that? It's like, it was 36.
30, yeah, I was going to say 36 or 37. I couldn't remember. Yeah. It's a big season. It was a big pilot season. Maybe
I
season
just
two
thought we were gonna
bigger. Who knows? No.
I thought we were just gonna do an episode every week forever, and then turns out like that's just not a sustainable model. So here we are. We're very excited to be back. If you're just joining us for the first time, this is a podcast where we discuss business and careers and life through the eyes of PR, comms experts. And this season, we're diving into not only just having guests that are comms experts, we dabbled with that a little bit last season, but we're going to have some pretty awesome journalists on this season. We've got some CEOs lined up. We've got more chief communications officers, and we know what to deal with. We have investor relations leaders, and we're just so excited. So thank you for listening and giving us enough credibility to reach out to these people and to say yes.
Exactly. It's going to be good. I'm excited.
Me too. Today is gonna just be like we're warming up. So like just we need we're warming up into a hot take episode, which as we mentioned earlier, like all of them are just now hot takes. But two things that we're gonna talk about. So we're diving into the Jeff Bezos wedding, because why the hell not? And then we're going to dive into the New York mayoral race. So the hot topic, aside from just the hot takes that we have on this, is like, can Duffy say mayoral?
It sounds weird in my accent, mayoral. It's like I'm too flat for that word. But so he's going to take the lead on saying that word every time we need to say it in this episode.
Yep. And Duffy, do you want to bring us in to the Bezos wedding?
If you haven't seen this, which I don't know if you've been consuming news and media, how you could have missed it, but I will recap. Jeff Bezos marrying his second wife, Lauren Sanchez. This wedding has been a long time coming. There's kind of been lead-up stories to it. And basically it happened. It happened about a week ago now. And look, I don't even know where to start with it. I think the interesting thing about it for me, there's a couple of things. I think it's been quite the spectacle, and I think in the current climate that has probably escalated it a little bit given, what's going on in the world. I think there's an element of kind of appropriateness around the extravagance of this wedding. Obviously, yeah. Bezos has money to spare, just a few dollars to spare. I think I don't know what you've heard, Boyson, but I think that the number I heard was they spent $100 million on the wedding. Now, whether that's like true or not, who knows? But I think there's a couple of things that to me really stood out. It was the extravagance of it in the current climate and everything that's going on in the world. Two, the culture of celebrity around it. And there was a whole narrative, which we'll get into, around whether the guests were actually friends, whether they were paid to be there, kind of the spectacle that was this wedding of celebrities flying in and attending. And then I think the third thing for me is this whole idea of like brand Bezos and kind of whether this wedding was good or bad for brand Bezos. And I guess he's been on an interesting journey with this relationship. With obviously we talked about Blue Origin in another episode. Like there's been some interesting things for him, and I think this is just another one where I look at it and I go, like, was this a good thing? Was it a bad thing? And I have an opinion on that, but that's kind of the gist of it, basically. I don't know how you have been absorbing it.
When I think about it too, like I always think about who are the publicists of these celebrities that are going to this wedding, and like, is there even a discussion around what this means for their brand by associating themselves? Because
Yeah.
honestly, like, I think Jeff Bezos could give two shits about what his brand is, like, I
Yeah.
really just think he's beyond that point in terms of like, what is it, like the threshold of like giving a shit about other people is when you start to make more than $200 million a year. Like, I read that somewhere just
Oh,
recently.
I like
Um,
that.
and I mean, once you get to a certain point, you're kind of like, I am the master of my own
Yes.
universe and nobody can touch me. And so, who gives a shit about your brand? Now, on the other hand, I think about that with the level of celebrity that you see coming to this wedding. It's like the Kardashians, like every single one of them in their own right is a billionaire, right?
Yeah.
And so, I think, these people just do what they want to do. Like, they do whatever they want to do and they don't really care about their brand. But I think what that signals is that there is just such a huge divide between what reality actually is for these people and
Yeah.
then what real reality is.
Yeah, yeah, but real people. It's interesting because like a lot of people have given like Leo flack as well because Leonardo DiCaprio went, and I think they had. I think the stat I saw was there were 90 private jets that were employed to as part of this wedding, right? And like here's Leo talking about climate, and then he's going to this wedding, and he got a lot of shit, and I think that's kind of to your point is like there's this weird kind of piece with these celebrities is like, what in my head, I'm like, why do you even want to be there? Like, it doesn't seem like you're friends. Maybe you are, but it doesn't seem like it. It seems like you're going to be part of that coverage and part of that spectacle.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, to your point, as a publicist, I'd be like, is that really good for us, bad for us? But if you're not there, does that mean you're not part of this upper echelon?
Totally.
Right? I think
Yeah.
that's part too, is like, if you weren't there, does that mean you don't roll in this kind of really exclusive kind of, billionaires club, for want of a better term? So I think that's interesting. I think you're right. I don't think Bezos gives a shit about his brand. I think what's interesting is like how much, and I think I know the answer, but it's like how much of this or when will it start affecting his businesses? And I think it's interesting with Amazon, I think they're a really interesting brand in that I think they've gone through a bit of a brand decline in the sense of their perception of them as a brand. They had a lot of issues in terms of their workers and their factory workers. But are people not using Amazon?
Oh my
No.
God. Yeah.
So then it's kind of like this interesting, yeah, like no, like people are heavily reliant on it, use it all the time. It's making a ton of money. And yet he keeps doing things that are like pretty tasteless and pretty, blah. And yet that doesn't seem to be impacting his business. Same with, some of the issues that they've had. It still doesn't seem to be. And I don't know the actual financials, but that's my perception. So I think that's a really interesting, is like to your point, is he just beyond now where he actually doesn't, what he does doesn't actually impact these other businesses that he has and all that sort of stuff. I think the other thing for me is like Lauren Sanchez to me has become almost like a caricature, like as Bezos's partner and Bezos's wife, and what is she wearing and what does she do, as opposed to like, I just feel like she went from being an individual with her own career and kind of this, she's experienced journalist. And now I feel like all I hear about is like her in relation to him.
Yeah.
And, she got a lot of flack about her outfits, which again, I'm like, and, of course, like the judgy person in me had an opinion on her outfits.
Yeah.
But it just feels weird to me that we're like ripping, again, this woman's outfits apart on her wedding. But then it's almost like, well, do you invite that in when you have such a spectacle? Probably. Yeah.
I agree. I hate the woman ripping. I hate that, like, around the wedding, all like on TikTok, it was so many people talking about like her before and after pictures of her plastic surgery. Like, let the woman plastic surgery. Like, let all women do whatever the fuck they want with that. Like, I just don't care. But like,
as Noah says, my body, my choice.
exactly.
That's what we love.
through and through. And so I think like the thing that bothers me is trying to create deeper meaning out of the thing she knows that she's getting attention for. So I'll give you an example. I was listening to another podcast. I can't remember the freaking name of it, but they brought up the funniest point. There are two Aussie girls. And like leave it to an Aussie to like break this down. I loved it so much. But they were talking about, I'll link it and I'll find it and I'll link it to give them credit. But they were talking about the Vogue article, and she had this dress, and it was like, first of all, like, can you even imagine wearing that in Venice in the summer and like how hot?
No, that's what I thought. That was my first thought. Was like, oh, she'd be sweaty.
Yeah, but like, first of all, she looked snatched. Like, waist looked great. I thought that she looked beautiful. Just wouldn't be my choice in that heat, you know. But that being said, when she said that when she went up into space in Blue Origin, it changed her perspective on shit so much that it changed also how she visually thought about the wedding. And that included her dress. And these two Aussie podcasters were like, hold on now. You were talking about that same dress that has not been changed 1 year ago.
Yeah.
In this timestamp, like they have the receipts from like when you were talking about all this. And so making yourself holier than thou, or like thinking that you have a secret to like life. Like coming back to the publicist, like I just want the publicist or somebody that is in their corner being like, Lauren, you can't talk like that. That's fucking bullshit, and everybody knows it.
You went to space, and that was your epiphany about the world, was you should change your dress for your wedding and how the wedding should visually look. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I went to space and I thought, wow, we're spending $100 million on this wedding in a time in the world where that money could probably be better spent in places. Like, that was your takeaway from going to space? Like,
I know.
Like, I'm not shitting on her, but to your point, it's like, is there no one saying, like, that's probably not, you know, gonna fly well or gonna feel like it's gonna land very well. But I think they've just lost all perspective on money. I really do. Like, I just think, and maybe that's what happens. Like, I think about, you know, let's play devil's advocate and play the other side of this card. He has a lot of money, so 100 million to him is not the same as 100 million to me, right?
I'd be like, if someone was like, hey, I spent only $100, and you were like, oh, $100.
Yeah, like I think for him, it's like us spending probably, I'm going to guess, because I don't know the percentages, but like, let's say I had an extravagant wedding and I spent, I don't know, 50 grand on a wedding.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, that would be wild, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's all relative in that way. So I think the dollar amount is probably, while obscene and could be spent better, to them, that's not the thing. Like, that's not the big, they're like, oh, wow, like, I don't know if we should get those hors d'oeuvres because they're a little bit more expensive than the other ones. Like, they're not looking at that. But I think the perspective and the, like, they've lost the ability to see outside themselves is my opinion. To see that to me was a show. That wasn't, I don't know. I feel like that there was some ulterior motive of like a statement that they were making with that wedding.
I also think there could have been an opportunity from like to acknowledge the protests, or like be a bit of a human being in that regard as well. Like, also as a publicist, there could have been like, if you didn't give a shit about your reputation, you could have like had a really funny memes and made fun of like some of the protests. Like, if I were Lauren Sanchez, here's what I would have done.
Okay, go.
Made Jeff go hold on to a piece of wood and like go out into the water and like mock the same like coffin Amazon protest floaty guys. Like, I would go have him like make the face up next to the sign. Like, I don't know. I mean,
just try and acknowledge.
Jeff act out all of the memes and like
that'd be good. But I think this is what I mean. Like, I just don't think they can even take. Like, I think they take themselves so seriously that you know, they can't. But I would have loved to see a celebrity come out and say, I'm not going because I don't think this is the way to spend time and money at this point in time in the world or whatever.
It's not a friendship, though. It's a business transaction going to that way.
That's exactly it. This is a business networking event. And if you're not there, then it's something about your relationships with that upper. I think that's the reality.
Yeah, it's like that weird owl club that the CEOs go to in Idaho or whatever.
That sounds weird. Okay. But yeah, I think like it's just interesting to me as well, like the media, how much we feed this though as well from a media standpoint, because although a lot of the coverage was brutal, it still got covered absolutely everywhere.
Oh, to
And
death.
part of me kind of also goes, God, I wish the media had just been like, you know what? We're just not going to cover it. Like, you guys can have spectacular, but guess what? If no media covered it, we wouldn't even know about it.
Yeah.
And they would have been furious because they would have done all this stuff without, and yet that's not the world we live in. But I just, deep down, I wish there could have been like a media get together to be like, let's just not do it. Let's just not cover it. Let's not go there. Let's not take photos. Like, we don't care. You have too much money and we're not going to feed that ego of covering this, because they won't care that the stories were brutal.
But what about like do you think that, I mean, how much more can we beat a dead horse with this? But like, I mean, like, all day, baby. Like, what am I trying to say? Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez probably were paying paparazzi to be there.
Yeah.
You know? And so like there's that element of it. And then there's the whole element of the Rupert Murdoch or like whoever owns the publications, like in with that crew, like that kind of, it's like it goes all the way to the top.
It's a twisted system and it's all intertwined, right? Totally. But I just like, part of me is like the vote, like if Vogue could just be like, you know what? No.
I would love that. You know who's gonna do that? I think our Gen Z, our beautiful Gen Z generation. Like, I have so much hope for them. I honestly think that they're gonna be the ones that are like, fuck you guys. Let's all agree not to do this. Like, let's not give these people any attention.
Yeah. But there you go. That was the media spectacular that was the Bezos Sanchez wedding.
Thank you for rapping. I feel like I can't talk about it for another second.
No. Let's move on to something a little bit more meaningful and
Okay,
important.
and more related to PR. Like, I feel like we just needed to have it for a minute.
Yeah. We just needed to cover it because like we needed to talk about it together.
Yeah, we actually haven't caught up in 2 weeks.
Yeah. And I need the wedding.
Oh my God. Okay, so let's talk about the New York City mayoral race.
Well done. Mayoral race.
It's an American word. There's a reason. What do you guys? Oh my! I've already forgotten what you call your mayors.
No, we have a mayor. We have a Sydney mayor.
Oh, what do you call your governor? You're the lead of the state.
Oh, a premier.
Yeah, premier. That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got that confused.
Yeah.
I'm losing it. I'm losing it all.
Shout out to the Sydney mayor. We do have mayors, but I don't think they have as big a role. I mean, now I'm shitting on the mayor, but like I wouldn't have said I'm super engaged with what the mayor's role is here. But I mean, Sydney's obviously a lot smaller than New York as well. So
I just feel like that's a Seamus question. We should just like hold that for when we get Seamus on this.
Hold it. I don't want to talk to things I don't understand.
No. Although that hasn't stopped us before. Okay. So here's what's happening with the mayoral race in case you're not up to speed. So Zoran Mamdani, he has run for the Democratic mayoral primary against Andrew Cuomo. So 2 Democrats running for the like, who gets to be the head dude that runs for mayor for New York City.
Yes, correct.
I'm explaining to you like I want someone to tell me how
In
this
technical
goes.
terms, that's exactly it. Yeah.
So what's happened is what's happened in this is Zoran is this kind of younger guy. He's one with the people. I will asterisk the like socialist undertones and the kind of like mentality that he has. Andrew Cuomo is basically like, I think that he was like disgraced out of office at one point.
That's true.
He is pretty much just like what all old people are in politics now, and and thinking that they're going to win and being egotistical and doing the same old shit that they used to do, and then being absolutely blown away and surprised when a younger person with different tactics that understands what young people need and how to speak to that audience on their platform comes in and sweeps them. So that's what's happened essentially in Katie's terms.
Yeah.
In voice and words of what has happened with this mayoral race. And
Yes.
my hot take on this is that old people need to stop running for political office. And by old, I mean, if you are, I would say like over 55, like, here's what we need to do. Yes, here's what we need to do. And I recognize how close I am to being that age.
Far away from us, but okay. Yeah.
But here's why. It's like, instead of doing all of the regular strategies and shit that has been ingrained into your entire career, like, I'm almost convinced that they do not have the capacity to switch out of that mindset and do things differently and not just the way that things have already been done. Here's what they should do instead. Nurture younger generations. Go find who those stars are. And this is both Democratic and Republican parties, but particularly the Democratic Party. Like, who are our people? You know, we don't know who the young people are aside from like 3 people. And nurture them and pump them up, and then like be almost like a mentor or a guide for them once you get them into office. Like, be in their cabinet or whatever that term is, you know, like be on their team. I think that's what's going to resonate, you know, and that's how they're going to stay relevant in this market, because I think it's showing time and time again that old politics is over. Like, I think that the strategy the mindset needs to shift.
Wow, I think that's okay. I'm going to absorb that hot take. I probably
all the hot takes.
No, I'm like, wow, you went spicy. I think there's a couple of things. I don't necessarily agree fully. I think also because I feel like 55 is still pretty young.
Okay, 60.
Okay, thank you for raising the age. I appreciate that. I think it's more, to me, it's like, and maybe this is you're right in that maybe they can't unlearn and redo and kind of do things differently. Mm-hmm. I think what is really interesting in this example is that I think there's a couple of things that came into play. And if you think of it from a comms perspective, New York's been going through a really interesting time as a city. I think, you know, similar to a lot of cities around the world, there's kind of this growing gap between the very, very wealthy and then the workers, the middle class, and then, you know, even like lower socioeconomic people who have to live and work in these cities that are becoming more and more expensive. And so they're becoming more and more disenfranchised with the leadership of those cities. I think that's a really interesting like moment in time in New York where there is a movement for change, and there's people who are looking and a generation coming up, a younger generation who want to work in New York, who are finding it too hard to live there, too hard to, you know, work there, all that sort of stuff. So there's this kind of moment in time. Then you have this candidate who really like has quite socialist views, which in other environments may not play so strongly, but I think in the current environment in New York, some of those messages were really resonating.
Yes.
And then he went and said, I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to go to new media. I'm going to go on podcasts. I'm going to go on different YouTubers. I'm going to embrace this whole new space. And I'm going to just have this really simple messaging around kind of getting back to kind of these people values and appealing to this group of people that really haven't been spoken to. And so if you look at that as a campaign, it's like right moment, right time from a city momentum where they're at and the kind of swell. Probably also the broader political environment in the US, in that, you know, there's some weird stuff going on. There's the Trump stuff. So I think people are looking for maybe different options and New York might see itself as a little bit more, you know, a different way and want to go a different way than the rest of the country. So there's kind of that piece. And then I think he did such a good job. Like if you listen to some of his, like I listened to him, he did that show where he's on that guy on the subway.
Oh yeah, I like those.
And it was funny. And it was like, he didn't take himself too seriously. And like at the end, they start talking about the price of a matcha latte. And he's like, and it's just funny. And it's like, he seems like a human and he seems real. And he's kind of, it's just really, and they, on that show, what I think was really interesting and kind of to your point is they showed a pamphlet of the competitors saying he's lying or he's done this or he's done that or whatever, but it's a pamphlet.
Yeah.
And it's like, here's this guy on this show on the subway, and then the competitors are doing pamphlets with like lie messaging, you know?
100%. And I think that the genius part of his campaign is that it's actually not fucking genius at all. Like what he did was he went and spoke to the actual people on their level, on their platforms that they're already at, in their districts, and he focused on the one thing, and the messaging was like focus on affordability, and built an entire campaign around it. Like he knew that people were feeling broke even if they weren't broke. And like on paper. And so what do? You build a campaign on that. And I think your point with like the pamphlets, typically what campaigning looks like for old people is you raise a shitload of money and then you put it into TV ads, into pamphlets, into all these things, when really, you know, the people that are struggling and that are going to rise up and vote are on TikTok.
Yep, exactly. And I think he just, and I mean, I think the other part of it is he is younger, so he automatically has an affinity with that audience. And so that's kind of to your point, I think, about long-term succession planning, whether it's in a business or not, in a political environment, is like, who are these younger, and not necessarily young, but like younger politicians that these parties can start to nurture and grow, because the age demographics are switching and these generations are going to be voters and or are voters now, and they're not consuming news in the same way. And so it's like, at some point, everybody's got to catch on to that. And I think he's just done a really, really good job of it. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out in the next stages. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I think, you know, from a messaging standpoint, I mean, I have so many thoughts on this, but like from a messaging standpoint, I just feel like you have to have memorable messages. They have to be short. They have to be video digestible. Particularly because now, like in going back to the TV ads, like you can't just like buy attention now. Like people aren't tuning in to watch, you know, current affair on Sunday nights to like, and that's their one time that they're going to get a chance to watch it. Like you have to earn attention from people. And the way that you do that is talking to real people. Like think about some of the viral like TikTok accounts that people love, like that Recess, you know, account where the teacher like interviews the kids and they just speak candidly out in the park. Like people just want to see real people and authenticity and good conversations. And I think that does not stop when you enter the political ecosystem.
Yeah. And I think that was, you know, it's funny. The matcha latte thing really, because he had fun with it and he didn't try and like pretend he could solve it and be really awkward and political about it. Like it was just like, yeah, that's funny. Like it's ridiculous how much we pay for that in New York. Ironically, it still plays into his message of affordability because it's kind of example. But I've seen so many times, like especially here in Australia, and anyone in our Australian audience will know this, it's like when it, like in an election race, like our prime minister or the opposition will go on like Kiss FM, like Carl and Jackie O, which is our #1 morning radio show, and they're just so awkward, and they get awkward around the questions, and they can't just like relax and just have a human conversation. And part of that is the nature of like we scrutinize everything these politicians say
100%.
And wrong we get, you know, but part of me just wishes they could be like relax and just have a human, and maybe that, to your point, is a generational thing that we will overcome. The politicians coming through and feeling more real and feeling like they've lived their life in a social media environment, all of that stuff. But I just thought he did that really well because he came across, I thought, quite authentically, even though it was all on message and it wasn't, you know, but it was like he had fun with it, and it was like, oh, you are human, like you get it, you know.
Well, just think about the previous kind of presidents or, you know, politicians in Australia where people really liked them. Like, who was the prime minister that drank all the beers?
Yeah, Bob Hawke.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people fucking love that guy because he was a dude. How long was he in office? Like 12 years or some shit like that?
I I don't know. That's probably testing my knowledge, but he's also the one we won the what's the big boat race in America? Oh, now I'm
Oh, the
showing.
America's Cup or
Yeah,
something?
when we won that, he was
Yeah.
like any boss that fires someone for not coming in tomorrow is a mug, and it's like that's very Australian. It's like we're taking the day off because we've won this sporting thing. Yeah, like I think people relate, but even Jacinda Ardern, I think
Yeah.
a lot of New Zealanders have mixed feelings about Jacinda because I think there were some policies and stuff that they didn't necessarily agree with, and it's interesting when you talk to New Zealanders about her. But just at a realness level, like when they had that tragedy at the mosque in New Zealand, she showed up and she was hugging people, she was engaging, she was emotional.
Yeah.
She was very real and she was very warm. And she would talk about her daughter, and she came into office pregnant and then had this baby and was balancing motherhood, and she would mention Neve and she would talk about her, and
Yeah.
as a woman, like it was so nice to see her like mentioning her children and
Yeah.
or her child. And so I do think we've seen glimpses of that in different leaders, but I think it's sort of, and even to some extent, the Prime Minister now, Anthony Albanese, is quite real in that way. I think he's had to change a little bit given he's become Prime Minister and stayed Prime Minister, and it's gotten more complicated for him. But the reason people loved him was he is from a working class family. He grew up in public housing. He's got this dog called Toto that goes everywhere with him. Like, I just think more politicians need to recognise that actually makes them more appealing to people.
I totally agree. And I mean, there was beyond just politics as well and politicians. There's something to say in that about CEOs and executives as well, and that's why we're seeing, and we've talked about this before, like humanizing your CEO, getting them on video. Kristen Culver, who was on the podcast, a few episodes ago, just did a couple of fundraising announcements where instead of doing the press release, they did a video and put that on their website and had it as like a landing page. Like, people want to know who the people are behind these brands. And I think for politicians, it's really recognizing that like the presidents that we remember, like the Bill Clintons of the world, like sure, there was like the blowjob scandal or whatever, but really, like, I remember him when I was a little kid, him playing saxophone on MTV to like a bunch of young voters. And I was like, he's fucking cool, man. And that's my lasting impression of Bill Clinton. Like, I have no idea how he actually was as a president, but I always thought he was cool because I was too young. But
yeah, I think it's just, and then I think the lesson out of this, that if you want to transfer it across to business as well, is like really starting to think about, to your point, other forms of communication, new media you can embrace, ultimately where your audience is, and it's going to depend on who your audience is. But if that audience is of a younger generation, or even not, like I just feel like people are consuming news in really, really different ways now, and the same old tactics just. And I think too many CEOs are wedded to like that one big piece in that one tier one publication. It's like, that's great, but actually might not get you what you're trying to achieve. And so I think, we need to be embracing some of this newer stuff.
Well, totally. And it's it's addressing kind of that mix of, you need to go to where your audience is. So like you said, like the big headlines in, the bigger publications probably aren't going to cut it anymore. It's thinking differently about understanding who you want to speak to and going to that audience's platform. But I also think there's a whole thing around like a reinvigoration.
Yeah, reinvigoration. Yeah.
It's happening again. The values-based messaging. Like, I feel like people want to connect with values and understand what people are all about, but it's not the values based messaging of like we're a family at our company. It's
Yeah.
like, what purpose are we serving? Like, if we're an AI company, like what does AI look like in the real world of how people are building businesses for the first time, because they actually have the extra hands because of the tools and capabilities that AI provides. Like, people want to know the real value that they're contributing to working at a company now. And if a leader can latch onto that and show those use cases and examples, you're like good as gold, I feel like.
I also think there's probably a tide turning because a lot of these newer companies are founded by younger founders and CEOs. So
Yeah.
naturally they have a different style. And that's not to say we still don't have the sort of, pale, stale white males. But I do think we're starting to see a shift because of the new style of companies that are being successful, and these early stage companies often are founded by younger people. And so I think we'll start to see that even more as those companies mature. The style of leadership is different, you know?
Yeah, I think so. And I hope so too. Like, I have faith in particularly working across the startups that I work with now, like seeing those styles and kind of how they want to bring everyone along for the ride. And even some of the founders, wanting to talk about competitors because they're doing cool things. Like, it's almost like they want to form coalitions of people they
Yeah.
think that are smart and stuff. Like, that mindset is changing, and I find it exciting. I don't know. I think that it's going to open up a lot of really interesting doors
Yeah.
for how we do storytelling.
Yep. I love it. I'm rooting for this mayor in New York. Not that I have any, like, it won't impact me at all, but I just feel like I think he's done a really good job and he seems like a really interesting guy. So it'll be fun to watch.
It'll be interesting. Like, I need to, I'm not sure where I stand with it, but like, here's 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 how I think about the things that he's suggesting. Like, people are calling him like a socialist, and it's going to break, the financial system that's happening there, and like what's going to happen with rent, and there's a bunch of things that are on the table that are really scary for particularly people that don't want the change. But at the end of the day, it's already fucking broken. Like, what is the harm in trying something different?
Mm-hmm.
What is the
Yeah.
harm of trying something different? And I think that finding some some common ground on like where we're willing to try, I think could be really impactful. So it'll be really interesting. I'm going to stay close to it. And
Sounds good.
it
Is that
sounds good.
is that our hot takes for the week?
Those are our hot takes. Do you have a dumb and private that you want to share? Or should we save it for our interview next week where we have a
Oh,
pretty cool guest?
we do have a good guest. Okay, I'll save it. I'll save it.
Okay, okay. Hey, thanks for sticking with us, you guys. Welcome to season 2 of Smart and Public, and we're excited to kind of show you what we have coming up. So write us at hello@smartandpublicpod.com if you've got any ideas for guests or topics. You can also find us on TikTok and Instagram at Smart and Public Pod. And other than that, we're just gonna like blow your mind in the next week, and with our guest lineup.